Man of Steel was alright. This was not. Okay? I had heard that this movie was going to be, a little bit, jambled, and there were some people who weren't really into this movie, and it didn't really have a high score on Rotten Tomatoes, but I was like, hey, you know what? I'm going to give it a chance. I'm going to see for myself what I think of it. And you know what? It wasn't as bad as they said it was. It was worse! You know what? I expected that at least this movie would be, forgettable bad. But no, I can never forget this. Okay? This movie has ingrained itself into me. I cannot stop thinking about it. Usually when I see a bad movie in theaters, I kind of think about it for 15 minutes and then it's gone, right? This movie can't do that. I spent what felt like 4 hours of my life in this stupid 2.5 hour long movie regretting every single dollar, every single penny I spent going to this movie. Okay? I'm just glad I went with a friend so we can make fun of the whole thing the entire time, okay? So, where do I even start? Okay, the beginning of the movie, I'm gonna spoil this entire thing for you guys. I don't give a fuck about what you think and your sensibilities of, oh, don't spoil it. Don't see this movie anyway, because if you do, it's to make fun of it, okay? The movie starts in the slow motion Batman thing where his mom dies and his dad dies, and then his dad falls on the ground and falls over and goes, Martha, in a very Rosebud kind of way, and you're like, oh yeah, that's not going to come back later. Then you have little Bruce Wayne in the woods, and he falls down his hole, falls down, and the bats swarm him, and he literally is picked up in the air by the bats in slow motion, like a bat tornado, and he's like, and then you're like, what is happening? And it's like, oh, it's a dream sequence. Okay, by the way, that laughing person watching this, they wanted to see me freak out, okay? So then, okay, then it cuts to, Bruce Wayne, and he's driving around the city, he's like, oh no, I gotta go see my business, and he's driving around the city, and this guy, of course, he's really good at driving, he's Batman, he's the motherfucking Batman, of course he's gonna be good at driving, but, I speak fast, I'm sorry, but there's there's people in the city walking around, there's people in the city, I don't know if this was just a problem with extras or if this was actually, what they wanted, but there's people who are walking around, casually, oh, nothing's happening. There's giant, explosions and skyscrapers literally falling to the ground. People are dying everywhere. It's a landscape of just death. And there's people I gotta go get a sandwich at Subway, la-di-da-di-da. And so he's going along, and he's, whizzing through the city, and there's people, in their cars, just still, obeying traffic laws. Would you obey traffic laws? I don't know about you, but if I saw a skyscraper explode and fly all over the place, I wouldn't be like, oh, I have to wait for ride on red. No, I just go. So, so he goes, and then he gets to this little girl or whatever, and he's like, I'll find your mommy, and she's like, where's your mommy? And she points out in the skyscraper. Then there's this really dramatic pose where he grabs the girl and goes, up at,
that was horrible.
He goes, no, okay, fuck, you can just edit this out later.
It does.
Okay, so, whatever, he gives this really dramatic, pose, and he's like, I'm gonna kill that man, because he's a horrible person, blah, 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 blah. Of course, you know what? Something I don't agree with murdering murderers, but in this case, murder Superman. Superman killed all these people. I don't care what you say. Oh, well, he's just good. He does save some people. He's so irresponsible. This guy is flying through skyscrapers with little care, okay? I can understand, oh yeah, he's fighting a big bad guy. He has to make sacrifices and such. But in the comics at least, he would pick them up and fight them in space so that way no one would get hurt, instead of all of Metropolis dying. What does Metropolis do instead of being like, oh my god, he killed everything? They make a monument to him, they say he's a god, and that's the whole theme throughout this entire thing. You have Lex Luthor, played by Jesse Eisenberg, which is the worst casting choice, I think, I've ever seen. Lex Luthor is supposed to be an intimidating businessman who gets things done, and he's very, he comes across as a very, serious man, but he also has a very, dark side and whatever. He's basically the anti-Batman, and even though he fights Superman, right? But no, in this one, he's basically a Joker clone. He's all like, oh, psychotic, that's a 3-syllable word for people with tiny minds. And then basically arguing about why God doesn't exist, or why God, I don't think God exists, but you know what? It's really pretentious to put that in a movie like this, and talk about all the Jesus imagery with Superman. But I think everyone knew about that. It's Man of Steel anyway. Amy Adams is in it. I can't really say anything else than that. She's just in it. You can tell that they made scenes just for her to be in the movie, and that's where we get to the next part. The scenes in this are incomprehensible. Absolutely incomprehensible. It feels like 8 directors were all compiled in a room, and they were like, okay, we gotta make this movie. It's gonna be big for the kids. You know, we gotta make this movie. People just want to see Batman and Superman fight. Just throw things together before that happens, and then the last 30 minutes will make sense. Because the last 30 minutes did make sense, but everything else before that was incomprehensible garbage. Absolutely bad. Me and my friends were laughing our asses off when serious things were supposed to happen. Two circumstances of this. One, Batman sees this future scene where it's like the fucking Scorched Trials. The entire city is like just a desert, and it's supposed to be like this serious scene where he's fighting, and then he gets killed by Superman, and then this guy from the future comes out and goes, "He was right! You were right! This was gonna happen! Ah!" And instead of it's supposed to be this big serious moment because the music is going dun 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 dun. The music in this movie is so pretentious again, right? And instead of being oh my gosh, me and my friends were crying. We were laughing so hard we were crying because of how bad this was. It failed on every level. I can't imagine Ben Affleck being able to keep a straight face while guys going ah! In his face. Then later on, there's this scene where the worst action scene I've ever seen in my life. Okay, so Batman has to go get this kryptonite or whatever, so he can go kill Superman later. Okay, whatever. It's on this it's on this truck, right? And this truck is surrounded by other trucks, and he gets into the Batmobile, which is it's like the Christopher Nolan Batmobile with the Rover or whatever. And he's going through the city trying to find these guys and finds them on this pier, okay? Now, these guys leave the pier, and so first of all, there's this truck with this fat guy with a machine gun going, ah! And so Batman pulls out his guns. Yeah, Batman kills people in this a lot. Actually, I think Batman probably kills more people on screen than Superman does, but he starts shooting, explodes the car, and drives through the explosion like nothing happened. Then he moves on, and there's this part where he hits a fucking boat, goes into the bow of the boat, the boats fall over, and he somehow manages to turn himself around within a second and break back out again, go through an entire building, and then go around, somehow knowing where these guys are going to turn, breaks through the top of this building and rips through the top of this semi-truck, peeling it off like an orange, going flying, but doesn't actually hit what he's supposed to do. All these other guys are dead, except for this one guy with a missile launcher, who accidentally blew up his own guys and shit. And the kryptonite's still there. Oh, look, it's good. We still have the kryptonite. And so Lex Luthor goes off and does this whole thing where he creates Doomsday, and this was the most insulting part of the entire movie. I am actually angry with this movie because of how they inaccurately portray these characters. You know what? If you inaccurately portray a Marvel character, a lot of people will get pissed, but not as much as a DC character, because DC is known for their strong characters. Now, granted, I'm not a big fan of Wonder Woman, or Aquaman. Fuck Aquaman, right? It looks like they're going to bring in Khal Drogo to make it cool or whatever, but I don't care. But if you need to get these characters right, because DC is known for their great characters. So with Doomsday, hey, I have an idea. Let's fucking make General Zod Doomsday and make it so the Doomsday looks like Michael Shannon mixed with a cave troll from Lord of the Rings, mixed with a Tyrannosaurus Rex fucking skeleton with shit sticking out everywhere. It was hideous. So he's growing this thing from essence of his own blood again. He's like, it's with my own blood. My genetic difficulties in my own blood. Ah! Fuck Lex Luthor. Fuck Jesse Eisenberg for having any involvement with this. Fuck him. Seriously. And okay, my God, because the last 30 minutes or whatever made sense, I suppose, right? Except for one part. So Batman, this entire movie is like, I'm gonna kill him. So you see him like training and whatnot to kill Superman. By the way, the scene transitions in this movie are absolute shit. They like transition from like, there's Clark Kent and Lois Lane are like in a bathtub, basically kind of like almost gonna have sex or whatever, and then it immediately cuts to like some cops breaking into this like property with a shotgun, and this guy fucking can't hit anything with a shotgun from like close range, whatever, you know. But it doesn't make sense because it just keeps cutting and cutting and cutting and cutting. Before we get to the end of the movie, I forgot to mention something. The Capitol scene is... Okay, so Superman's like, I'm going to appear before the Supreme Court in the American Capitol building with other senators in front of the senator from Kentucky who's a Democrat. Explain that for me, please. A Democrat, okay, whatever. Let's not bring politics into this. I already kind of did that, though. And, like, fucking, like, he comes in front of it, like, he's like, he walks in, he, like, puts his hands down, and then, this woman starts talking about, like, oh, this is the people's court, we'll decide if you know, whatever. Lex Luthor, in short, blows up the entire building, right? The entire building is just ripped to shreds, like, exploded, right? Absolutely demolished. Everyone dies. Everybody. And you see it from, like, outside, and the U.S. Capitol building is destroyed. And then they cut to the next scene. And no one cares. They never mention it again. No one cares about the Capitol building being gone. They care more about Doomsday wrecking things. Do you know, if the entire Supreme Court and several senators and rich-ass people died in the fucking Capitol building, which is gone now, do you think some people might talk about it? A little bit. Maybe. But no, apparently not. Apparently there's more important things like climbing the Himalayas to go see your father being Kevin Costner throwing like bricks and shit and talking about how he fucked up. Yeah, even in death you fucked up, fucking Kevin Costner. So anyway, we get back to the end of the movie. And Batman wants to kill him the entire movie, right? It's such an important thing to him. It's such an important thing. He just wants to see this guy bleed. He's like, do you bleed? And he gets in this, like, metal suit, and he has, like, kryptonite bullets and whatnot, and he beats the shit out of Superman. Like, he cuts his face, man. He cuts Superman's face with this, like, spear. And then, the whole reason why Superman wants to kill Batman is because, they have his mom, right? And, she's gonna die by being burned to death, like, if he doesn't bring the bat's head or whatever. And so he's on the ground, like, he has Batman's boot to his neck, and he's like, Martha, take care of Martha. And you see Batman's face like, what did you say? Martha? Martha, take care of Martha, my mother. And then he uses this flashback of his own mother dying, and then there's the whole Martha Rosebud thing again. And I was like just absolutely, like, what am I watching right now? And then, so he, like, drops the spear, and now they're best buddies! Isn't that great? Even though he slaughtered all his people, their moms share the same first name. Yeah, sure. Okay, I'm gonna believe that. So then the rest of the movie goes down. Superman dies. Spoiler alert, I already said that shit. Superman dies because he, like, sacrifices himself to kill Doomsday. But it's a complete cop-out because at the end of the movie, which, by the way, should have ended many, many times, right? You see this dirt, like, on top of his grave, like, float up a little bit, then the movie ends. This movie felt like it was, like, 4 hours long. I am completely insulted by this entire movie. My friend over there, who's sitting next to me because she doesn't want to be on camera, she thought, well, friend, tell the audience what you thought of the movie.
It was bad.
Okay, like, was it humorous, though?
It was so bad that it was good.
Like, how bad was it? Between 1 and 10, like, what would you rate it? 10 being great.
2.
2? Yeah. You know what? I put a score of 1 on IMDb just because it has a 7. What the fuck? But I would give it 2 because even though some parts of it were absolutely incomprehensibly horrible, I did laugh. Some of the parts were funny.
But it was, like, unintentional.
It was very unintentional. Yeah, it was very unintentional. The action scenes are horrendous. The acting sometimes can be it's all right, but sometimes it can be bad, especially with Jesse Eisenberg. The plot points are like a mess. Lawrence Fishburne in this movie is just like, what? Okay, like, him and Amy Adams were useless in this movie. There are plot points that are all over the place. Every scene had me like, what? There were points where I was literally putting my middle fingers up, just sitting there like, and my friend and I, the music would come on and be like, da, dun 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 dun, and we were literally going like dun 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 dun. The people behind us hated our guts because apparently they liked it. I will say this though, one thing before I leave YouTube and maybe we make something later. If you are an intelligent person and you like this movie, you're not intelligent.